Do you think you know Coco Chanel, the rebellious orphan who built one of the strongest luxury empires in history? Think again. Did you know she paid off her brothers to keep pretending she's an only child? In this video, we dive into the life of Coco Chanel, figuring out who she really was. So keep watching till the end as we have saved the biggest secret of Chanel's history for last. Early life. Chanel Bonheur Chanel was born in 1883 to an impoverished family. After her mother passed away at a young age, her salesman father took her and her two sisters into a convent-run orphanage called Aubergine. Her two brothers were given to a farmhouse as a non-paid child labor. This period in Chanel's life is particularly covered in mystery as she altered things often and even refused to talk about Aubergine as an orphanage. Rather, when talking about it, she would refer to the harsh aunts she was living with. Rebellious Chanel had difficulties adjusting to the harsh rules of the aunts as she resented them, their rules, and anything they were giving her from the very beginning. Even Chanel herself gave a description of her younger self as fierce little creature, arrogant, pretty, and restless. As Chanel navigated through the rules and order of the orphanage in her white shirt and black skirt, she was expected to knit baby clothes and hem the sheets. As she learned the life-changing skills of sewing, she kept getting in trouble as she smuggled and hid romantic novels at the orphanage, knowing very well such vile content was strictly forbidden. Compared to the rebellious, overly confident Chanel, her sisters were nothing like her. Julie was passive and feeble-minded, whereas Antoinette was delicate and insecure. Evolution to Coco. With the confidence that Chanel had, it's no surprise she found herself singing at La Rotonde, cheered on by officers. Her voice was delicate, but she put her whole force and heart into it as she sang a sad song about a Parisian girl losing her dog at Parc Trocadero. Who has seen Coco? She sang the song and got her performance Coco to the program. As Coco altered her past frequently, this story is one that also has a different version. In this version, her nickname started with her saying the French word Cocorico. The crowd was screaming back to her Coco and thus became the story of Coco Chanel. As Chanel's older sister Julie killed herself and left behind a son, Chanel decided to raise him as her own. But in a true Chanel style, she shipped him to a boarding school as it would have disturbed her life in Paris. When Chanel had made her fortune, she paid her brothers off to keep them from re-entering her life, as she had claimed to the whole world to be an only child. Coco Chanel opened her first boutique in Paris in 1910 with help from her first lover, Étienne Balsan, who was more than willing to finance her beginning as a designer. The first boutique was dedicated to hats, which Chanel had been creating and the high society women had started to notice and later crave for. Slowly, Chanel started to expand her business into clothing, and the fabrics she used included flannel and tweed, which were uncommon at the time, and made her simple styles even more popular. In 1913 and 1915, she opened two more boutiques with the help of her second lover, Boy Capel. Empowering women. Coco did not know how to draw, but she would be able to see with just one look if a hat fit a customer or not, as she had a distinctive eye for fashion and design. As Chanel built her fashion empire, she would walk around the atelier and cut fabric to make it perfect, with the scissors hanging from her pearl necklace. As a designer, Coco Chanel was creating clothes with a female revolution in mind. She wanted to liberate women from corsets and uncomfortable creations. She wanted a woman to be wearing the garment, not the other way around. This revolutionary thinking is a major factor in the success of her business, as women were hungry for empowerment. For this revolution, Chanel designed the little black dress, which has since become legendary. At the time, black was a color only used in funerals, and fashion overall was very excessive. The little black dress changed this in 1926 by showcasing that a simple, straight-lined silhouette in a calf-length black dress was the true way of being elegant. Did you know Chanel was a revolutionary in her time? Comment below to take part in the conversation. The men in her life. As Chanel was very beautiful in a unique way, she behaved sophisticatedly and carried herself with grace. Her eyes were black as ebony, her neck long, her figure slim, and she dressed herself like a young convent girl. It's no surprise she had men falling for her left and right, and she did have multiple lovers during her lifetime. Étienne Balsan, a wealthy textile heir who was put aside when Chanel met his good friend Boy and started a love affair with him. As Chanel was telling Étienne about her dreams of building her business, he turned her down, saying that making hats was just a hobby. Boy, however, sided with Chanel, and the next morning, Étienne was left with a note saying she's leaving with Boy as she loves him. To Chanel, Boy was a man who saw her better than anyone else. Someone solid who believed in her and trusted her to have a mind of her own. Even as Boy ended up marrying Diana Wyndham, Countess of Westmoreland, he and Coco continued their affair. Chanel even refused to acknowledge that Diana existed. Boy's death in September 1919 devastated Chanel so bad she asked her bedroom to be covered in black. According to Chanel herself, Boy was the only man she truly ever loved. On the 13th of October 1924, the British news were raging over a beautiful, bright French woman who would become the new Duchess of Westminster. The Duke, Bendor Westminster, had met Chanel in 1923 and was lavishing her with expensive gifts like pearl necklaces. Chanel said she couldn't wear the real ones out as everyone was staring, so she made copies and chose to wear those instead. With all the gossip around, Chanel cut the wings of these rumors by stating that there was no way she would leave her fashion house. The Wertheimers stepped into Chanel's life, suggesting she would manufacture perfumes for them, and she would get 10% of the profits to protect her fashion house. Chanel agreed to the terms set for her. The iconic Chanel No. 5 perfume was originally produced in 1921 by Ernest Beau. From the samples presented to her, Chanel preferred No. 5. As Chanel No. 5 became one of the most sold perfumes in the world, Chanel felt that the Wertheimers had been making money off her, and so she began a legal battle against the family to gain back the rights to her perfume, which she unfortunately lost. As Wertheimers were Jews and Chanel felt they had robbed her, it sparked anti-Semitic views in her. The men in Chanel's life can be partly blamed for the growth of these views. From 1931 to 1935, she dated Paul Iribe, an illustrator and designer, who was deemed to be extremely anti-Semitic. He had been totally devoted to Chanel, and after his passing, she longed for someone to adore her. Coco the German spy. In May 1940, Hitler invaded France, and in June, Chanel was forced to leave Paris behind. Chanel was on the run, and she found a refuge at the country house of Étienne Balsan. Her relief was, however, short-lived as the news of her nephew being captured by the Nazis reached her. On the 17th of June 1940, France surrendered, and Chanel cried for days, saying that it was a betrayal, as was the common view of the French at the time. Chanel wished to return to Paris as she had heard André was alive but ill, and she decided to talk to French leaders to have him released. Hearing that they considered André as just one POW among the rest, she knew she had to turn to the Germans for help. The Paris she returned to was very different, covered in swastikas and officers shouting Heil Hitler as a high-ranking member entered the Ritz Hotel that had become the center of operation. It was in this version of Paris that Chanel met the German Baron Hans Gunther von Dinklage, who happened to be a high-ranking officer himself. As a lover of Dinklage, Chanel was living and dining among the highest of the German officers. Up there, the intelligence of Nazi Germany was aware of Chanel's desire to release her nephew, and they were willing to help, for a favor, of course. Chanel met with Valfreld, an up there agent who quickly convinced her that he could have André released and return to her in Paris. In return, Chanel went to Madrid to gather political intel for the Germans. Coco Chanel became a Nazi agent number F7124 with a code name Westminster. Returning to Paris in winter of 1941, her nephew was released. Germans had seized her perfumery as Jewish property, but Chanel was able to have it returned to her. But sadly, after the war, the sales dropped. Pierre Wertheimer returned to Paris and decided to help Chanel with her second coming into the fashion world. The fashion show in 1954 flopped, as people didn't see anything new in her designs. However, 3 weeks later, Life magazine praised Chanel for staying true to her impeccable taste. Chanel had made it again, and her empire kept growing until her passing in 1971. After she passed away, Karl Lagerfeld took over the creative designs of Chanel. Today, the Chanel brand is one of the top tier of luxury fashion, and Coco Chanel herself is considered a legendary figure revolutionizing fashion for women everywhere. That was our story about the legendary Coco Chanel. Was there something you found surprising? Comment below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Quality Mainstream. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.